Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for another tag. Lately I've been doing some spring-related tags. Well, this time I'm going to do a kind of an update tag. And as I said in my latest spring tag video, I was going to do kind of an update of how my reading is going. But the spring tags I just did have some questions that kind of were updating you guys and how my reading is going. And this is also one of those tags. So I'm not going to do that, but I am going to do these tags for you guys because they give you what a video where I was updating you would have done. Okay, so the first question, number 1, is how many books have you read so far this year? And I am up to 27 right now. I literally just finished one this morning. I'm working on another one. And I'm feeling pretty good about it because the one I just finished was a super long one, and I started it in 2020, I think. So I'm happy to say I finally finished it. And I will talk about that one in a little bit because it is one of the answers for the second question here. So yes, I've read 27 books so far. I think because I'm trying not to put DNFs on this. But instead of deleting them instead. Okay, so and that's out of 50. That's out of 50 for my Goodreads goal I gave myself. Okay, so question number 2 is how many have you already found the book you think that would be a favorite of 2023? If not, what was your favorite book you read that wasn't quite 5 stars? And I picked more than one favorite. Although now I think about it, I didn't give them all 5 stars. So actually this kind of is answers and one of them I didn't give a star rating, but I feel like 5 is, just because you don't give it 5 stars doesn't mean it's not a favorite. I don't think favorites are necessarily always going to be 5 stars. Sometimes they're going to be 4 stars. At least that's what I feel. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe most people disagree, but I personally feel that just because it's not, for me at least, even if it's not 5 stars, it doesn't mean it's not a favorite. So first, we have, let me kind of do this in order when I read them. First, Legends Lattes by Travis Beltry, and I know that the second book just came out. I love this book. I love that the main character is an orc, and it's not just this big epic fantasy story. It's a very cozy, wholesome story where there's no epic battles or chosen ones or anything. It's just this orc wants to open up a coffee shop. Sorry, I just got a text message, and I get notifications from my text on my computer. And it's just such a sweet story. It's, and I like that there's a romance between the orc and a succubus, and they're just wanting to open up a coffee shop. It's just such a cute, low stakes story, and it's a comfort read. And then we have, this is nonfiction, so I didn't give it a star rating, but we have We Don't Need Roads, the Making the Back to the Future trilogy. This Back to the Future was my first sci-fi. And it was just so cool to dive deep into how this movie was made and get answers to some of the little gossip that I already knew about the making of this movie. It was just, like, as a fan, it was just such a great deep dive into the world of how this movie was made and get all the nitty-gritty details and it was so much fun. It was just a fun ride to learn about this movie. Like, if you're a fan of Back to the Future, please check this out. It's We Don't Need Roads by Cassine Gaines. You know, if you are a fan of this, please, it is really informative, and there's pictures, of course, and it's so great to, you know. And then we have my next favorite is Ruin of Kings. I finally read this. This is one of the tomes I read this year, so I was very happy about that I finished, by Jenna Lyons, and I already bought book 2. And this is such a fun world. I know the narrative structure is confusing for a lot of people, but it's a fun world. I like how our main character, you know, discovers he's part of a horrible family. And he has to, you know, prove that he's not like his family, that he can be different, you know, and it's just, the magic system is really cool. I like the old man character. He's a dragon, they call him the old man, and I love his character. He's scary and intimidating, but also kind of fun. A little very creative for a dragon, and just I love this world, and you know, see all the different magic systems. And I hope in the second one we learn a little bit more about that. And this was just so much fun. I know that there are things that people don't love about, but I personally loved it, and I can't wait to read the next one. And then the last one is the book I just finished, Anna Karenina. I love this. You know, I know there are people that don't love it. I get that it's not a classic for everyone, but for me, it was so great learning about the lives of these characters, these people, especially Levin. Like everybody else, I love Levin. You know, most people, universally, people only know Anna Karenina, but she's not even the main character. Like, she's definitely secondary. I mean, she's a main character, but the story is really about Levin, who is a Tolstoy stand-in, and it's their lives, you know, running parallel to each other, and, you know, their marriages and making choices, and there's critique on, you know, on, like, what is the right choice, and on life choices, and there are some tedious things, like talks on philosophy and politics and everything, and farming, but it's still so good, such a riveting story about these people, and I know not everyone will agree, but for me personally, it was riveting, and I really love these characters. I mean, they frustrate me at the same time, and kind of annoy me at times, but yeah, I think this was really great. I'm glad I can finally say I read it. Now I can jump into War and Peace and Brothers Karamazov. Okay, so those are my favorite books. Okay, so next is any 1-star books, least favorite of the year, and of course mine, I don't have anymore. It was in my donation pile, and it probably is already gone somewhere. And that is Memoirs and Misinformation by Jim Carrey and Dana Vachon. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. So I thought this was an actual memoir, but that was my bad because I didn't look it up. This was, and when I say I do mean the comedian / actor Jim Carrey. He wrote this book with this woman Dana Vachon. And it wasn't actually a memoir. It read more like, it was like fiction. It was like fiction. Like, I don't mean it read like fiction. It was fiction. Like, he took some aspects of his life and fictionalized them. And I want an actual memoir about his life. And I understand if he doesn't want to write one, that's fine. But I would read the heck out of it if he did write an actual memoir. That was an actual memoir about his real life, not like him, you know, taking his life and putting a fictional spin on it or whatever. I mean, an actual story about his life, and not like a fictional story taking, like, the actors in Hollywood that he's met, he turned them into characters, and so it's very confusing because it's not exactly it's not an actual memoir, but like, there are probably aspects, like ideas that were probably based on truth. But it was not what I was expecting. And it was also it was just weird. It felt more like literary, like he's trying to be literary, you know, like what is good and what books that would be considered literary. That's what it felt like where it was trying to be artistic. And I have all the respect in the world for Jim Carrey, and he's a great actor, and I'm sure a lot of people will love this, but I personally, it's not what I wanted, so it's not maybe necessarily a bad book, it's just not what I thought it was going to be, so that's on me, not on the book itself. I'm sure it's a great book, but it was not what I wanted. So that's my least favorite, but I didn't give it a star rating because, you know, I felt weird giving this star rating. I feel like I couldn't do it because I didn't get very far, like, onto, like, chapter 3. Okay, so that was question number 3. So, question number 4, most read genre, of course, fantasy. I love fantasy, and it still will always be my number 1 choice. You know, even when I feel like I haven't read enough fantasy that year, I probably will read more fantasy than anything else. So yeah, it's the most read genre. Question number 5, a book that surprised you. Let me see if I put it. Okay, so again, this is a book I don't have because as much as I enjoyed this and think it was a good book and I would recommend it to people, it's not necessarily a book I would read again. Which I know probably doesn't make sense, but for me personally, there are books that I enjoy and think are great books, and I would recommend that I read once and I'm content, but I wouldn't necessarily read it again. And then there's the books that I would read again and again that I absolutely love. But that is J.G. Ballard's High Rise. And you guys, as I already showed you guys, that was the book that the only reason why I decided to check it out in the first place was because Tom Hiddleston is in the adaptation along with who else? Jeremy Irons, and then I cannot remember the other guy's name. The guy who played Bard in Desolation of Smog, in Battle of the Final Armies, and he also played Gaston in live action Beauty and the Beast. I cannot think of his name. I know it's gonna pop in my head at some point, but that actor, he is also in it. And it's just such a thought-provoking read, and it really, you know, shows the darker side of humanity. Like, these people live in this hotel, this high-rise, not a hotel, and a high-rise apartment building, and then the building starts to malfunction and fall apart, and then they're forced to kind of rely on primitive instincts, and they become wild and just slowly descend into chaos. And it's such a fascinating read. And, you know, you get the perspective of Tom Hiddleston's character, Robert Lang, who's a professor at the college. Then you have the architect who designed. He's the one, I think Jeremy Irons plays him in the movie. And then you have the other guy whose name I can't think of. He plays, he's in actually, I don't know who he plays. But we also have a guy who's filming a documentary about the high rise. It's just such a fascinating read. And I think worth talking about. Like I said, it's not one I would read again, but I did really enjoy it and would recommend it. Granted, this might not be if it's not your thing, it's not your thing, but I think it's a very fascinating read. So yeah, that was one that surprised me. Because I didn't know how I feel about it, but I really enjoyed it. And like, yes, I'm not keeping it, but I did really enjoy it. Okay, so number 6, book that comes out in 2003 already that you want to read but haven't yet. And then so I picked 2, and I don't have in my possession yet. And that is because I always like to wait until these books come out in paperback, because in the US it comes out in hardback first. Is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. It's one of his secret projects. Where, you know, in case you don't, he wrote a bunch of books during COVID, when we were under lockdown. He just wrote a bunch of a number of like 10 books. So now he's publishing them slowly over, you know, one after the other. And this is the first one, Tress of the Fall of the Emerald Sea. And this is apparently a retelling of, what is that? What is that called? Cannot think of that. It's a famous novel, and I can't think of what it's called. But it's a retelling of. The Princess Bride. It is actually was inspired or a retelling of The Princess Bride. And the goal of it, the Brandon wanted to do is have the Buttercup character have more agency and do more than just like sit there and be rescued all the time. And then Day of Fallen Night, which is the prequel to Priory and Orange Tree. So I know a lot of people recommend you read. A lot of people say that Day of Fallen Night, you could read it first, but I have Priory and Orange Tree, and I have been meaning to read, so I want to read that first. And then when Day of Fallen Night comes out in paperback, I will get that. That's by Samantha Shannon, by the way. So those two just came out. Well, actually, Trust Me, I'm not seeing might have come out last year. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I'm trying to remember, but anyway, I just answered that. That was my answer. Okay, so that was number 6. So number 7, what are your goals you made that you're succeeding at? So one of the goals I made was to read more tomes this year. And I've read 3. I've read Anna Karenina, as you saw. I've read The Physician by Noah Gordon. I was very happy about that. And that's actually a series, but I'm probably not going to continue the series. And then Ruin of Kings. I'm very happy about that as well. I feel very accomplished that I've read these big books, because big books take me forever to read. And what's great about, unfortunately, these ones I didn't start this year. I read them like a couple years ago. Maybe I don't know if either one of them, if I started last year. I don't know when I started Ruin of Kings, but to no longer have them sitting on my shelf unread or unfinished makes me feel proud that I've read them. I'm excited because, those science books take me a long time to read. And it's exciting to know that I've finished them finally and I can knock them off my list, And I will eventually probably reread them. And like I said, I already bought The Name of All Things. I ordered it off Book Outlet, because it was a little cheaper on there than on Thrift Books, because they didn't have any old copies, they just had the new copy, and that's a little more expensive, and I wanted to get another book, although funnily enough, the other 2 books I had in mind, they didn't even have those on Book Outlet. I don't remember how much they were on Thrift Books, but I'll get them next time. And it's just nice and such a relief to be able to say, I read those books. So yeah, one of my goals was to focus on getting some of my tomes read, and I've read 3, so I'm happy about that. Okay, so number 8 is one goal that you need to focus on. A goal that I feel like I should focus on is my series. I've already accomplished 1 trilogy, and I want to read some other ones. I have like trilogies in 4-book series where I only have 1 book left. So I could easily finish this if I just take the time to read. Like I said, the Rift War Saga, I just have this book left. And these books don't take me that long to read. So I need to prioritize this one and read it soon. Even if I don't get to it this spring, at least I want to get to it this summer. But yeah, it's only 1 book left. I could read, check out some of the other books, but as far as this series goes, there's only 1 book left, so I feel so I can easily finish it, and I have been wanting to have more than 1 series read this year, because last year I only read only finished the 1 trilogy, and I want to make sure I finish more than 1 for this year for once. So it's something that I definitely want to focus on this year. Oh, just fell. At least the bookmark's still on. Okay, so that's another goal. That's the goal one of the goals I want to focus on. I still want to continue focusing on the tomes, but that one, is one that I have kind of neglected. Along with the nonfiction goal, where I want to read a nonfiction every year. every month. So, I'm trying, but some of my nonfiction books are big books, like the Walt Disney biography. As I showed in my spring TBR, my spring book tag video, I mentioned that I want to read Origin of the Species. So I want to focus on that one, so that maybe for once in November, I will actually feel inspired to participate in Nonfiction November. Like, it's one of these things where I talk about doing it, I kind of start to plan for it, but then it falls through, and I don't do it. So I want to make sure I do that this year. Or if not this year, maybe next year. But I figured the best way to do that is make sure, just get into the habit of reading nonfiction every month, which I've not been doing well at. I've been doing okay, but in March I kind of didn't read any nonfiction in March. I attempted to, though. I read a little bit more of the Walt Disney biography, but that's a long one. Okay, so yeah, those are the goals. So reading nonfiction every month, and completing some series. Those are 2 goals I want to focus on a little bit more the rest of this year. Okay, so next, question number 9. This is the last one. Now, I don't know if there's a question where they want you to tag people, so, after you watch me do it, if you want to do the tag, feel free to consider yourself tag. Do it, because it is a fun tag. Kind of a way to look at how you're reading. Again, another one of those things where you can look at your reading and talk about how it's going with your reading. Okay, so this last question is some new to you booktubers, bookstagrammers, book talkers for this year. Now, there is one person that I just realized when I wrote them down, but then I realized I did not start watching them this year. In fact, I started watching them either last year or the year before. But I just put them on here anyway. Not that all the channels I'm mentioning really probably don't need anybody. I'm sure they will appreciate it, but they're big enough channels. They're not like small channels. But there's no bookstagrammers or book talkers on this because I don't really watch books, look at bookstagram pictures or book talkers. I'm not interested in book talk. Although I did read, although I did not realizing this book I bought was a book talk book. But some of the ones I mentioned that are really great are Mike's book reviews. He does a lot of focus, particularly on Stephen King. He's a sci-fi, fantasy, horror reader. And he does a lot of great reviews, some deep dive videos. He also gives, talks about movies and stuff. I love hearing about how he and his kid are reading together, especially, right now they're reading Percy Jackson books. That I think is really, I love hearing that. And he's just a very laid back guy. I really like his videos. He will also do these talk about nothing. He calls them talk about nothing videos, where he will pick booktubers and talk for an hour with them about about whatever fantasy, horror, sci-fi they're reading, and really do deep dives. It's just, his videos are really cool and just really fun to watch. And he really knows his stuff, I think, personally, on Stephen King. I'm sure he'll tell you that there are other people who know Stephen King more than he does. I think he has said that. There are people who know about Stephen King more than he does. But yeah, I really enjoy his videos. And then Shades of Orange. She's also she's more of a newer one. Actually, it's Mike who introduced me to her channel. He talked to her on one of his book, Talk About Nothing videos. She's very horror and sci-fi. I think she's a teacher, and I remember her talking about on one of those videos that people were either it was on one of her videos or the video with Mike, where she talked about how people, actually, I think it was the video with Mike, where people were surprised because they don't think, going by her personality and stuff, they didn't think she would be into horror and sci-fi. which that's, you know, which I love. I found that really funny, especially as I'm someone who, you know, I think about that myself. What do people think I read? You know, are people surprised that I read things like Stephen King? But yeah, it was, you know, I really, again, I feel like I haven't watched enough of her videos yet, but I did like her videos so far of what I watched from her. I need to, you know what I should do? I should go through all the channels I'm subscribed to talk more about, like, promote some of the more smaller channels. I feel like, it's just these were some of the channels that I haven't talked about a lot that came to mind, but they're big channels, so they probably don't need my promotion, but I'm sure they would appreciate it. Next is the hardcore literature book, and this guy has his name is, what is, Benjamin is his name. Ben's his name, and he has a book club actually. I feel like it seems like, or at least his channel is a lot about classics. And he does really good deep dives, and I feel like it's like taking a class, but in a fun way, an entertaining and fascinating way. When I watch his videos, he does the deep dive, helps you really get you into the story, into the passion, and makes it feel less intimidating. And you just are inspired to read books because of his channel, you know, and his deep dives, and he really discusses them and analyzes them, and he also does videos on how to build your library and how to decide which edition of a classic to read. You know, I think he's very helpful if you're trying to decide what classics to read, and which edition of the class, which is the best version of that classic. Like if there's a class, he's a booktuber that, one of the ones that if you are not sure about a classic, then I think you should check out his channel. And then last but not least is this is the one that I didn't technically discover this year. I discovered probably like last year or the year before. I don't remember. And I think his first name is Chris. Leaf by Leaf is his channel name. And again, this is another one where it feels like you're in a class, but it's in a way that's fun and interesting, and just, you want to listen. You want to sit there and listen to what they have to say and absorb what they have to say. You know, he feels very, he feels like someone that knows a lot and understands a lot. Like, like I said, he was the one who introduced me to I just put it back. I talked about it in my previous video. The Recognitions by William Gaddis. He was the one who introduced me to William Gaddis. And I even considered trying out Sid Arthur. He also recommended Sid Arthur, not to me, but I did try out that one because of him. Now, in that case, that was a bit of a failure because I was just, you know, it wasn't me or him. It was just the book wasn't for me. And I don't know, maybe the narrator didn't help me because I listened to it on audiobook, but it was a free audiobook, so. But he's another booktuber that I want to check out the books that he talks about. And he's also one that, he's had a couple of people that disagree with him. But he's very polite and nice to people, even if they disagree with him. You know, so I really like that because, you know, so many times I will see these long ass threads of people just arguing back and forth, and it's almost hilarious sometimes seeing people go back and forth and just having bad attitudes towards each other about the whole thing, and, you know, getting mad at each other, you know, like. And now I know I can get emotional myself, and I might be one of those people who gets on those threads and gets mad at people, but I also don't like conflict, for one, and I try to, even though there are times when I've been tempted to say something, I avoid it. I don't say anything, even though I thought about it, and then times when I have gotten discussions because people respond to my videos, I feel like I haven't done the best job of responding to people because people want to discuss a book with me and discuss why I feel the way I feel about a book, and at that point I can't respond. And I always worry, if I look back, what if I find out that I wasn't as mature as I thought in my response? So I worry about that. So I always appreciate those booktubers that are mature enough and are comfortable enough that they can be very polite to people, even if they disagree, even if the person has a bad attitude towards them and gets on the defensive and gets mad at them for their opinions. This guy is very polite and very civil to people, and and I really like I like that. I appreciate that. But yeah, both him and Benjamin from the Hardcore Literature channel are just really handle the negative comments really well. Now I don't know how they feel about him when the camera's not on, but they very much, when they respond in the comment section or on their videos, I think they're very very mature and handle it well. But also, again, I know I already said this, but it feels like in both those cases, it feels like you're in a class that you're excited to take and you really enjoy and appreciate that professor. That's what these guys feel like. And there are a lot of other booktubers that I feel that way, that they feel like professors in a good way. So yeah, that is the quarter crisis book tag. I think I will do one at the end of the second quarter and then the third quarter. And I probably won't do it at the end of the last quarter, because there will really be no point. Because I'll be, the end of the last quarter will be the end of the year. So I won't need to update, except for just letting you know how my reading went in general. But anyway, so I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already and you feel so inclined to subscribe to my channel. And I hope you are enjoying your reading. And again, like I said, if you want to do this tag, I think it's a great tag to do, especially if you want to update everyone on how your reading is going. Or if you just want to answer these questions in the comments below, please feel free to do so. And I will talk to you all later. All right. Bye.